Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument, hosted by the militant, Marxist, anti-Santa, Martin Bradbury. The Bradbury Group is streamed live on Rover, Sky TV, YouTube and Facebook. Proudly sponsored by Wātea, journalism you can trust. Let the arguments begin.
Kia ora Aotearoa, the true demarcation of power in a late-stage capitalism, liberal, progressive democracy is the 1% richest, plus their 9% enablers, versus the 90% rest of us. And once you see politics through that lens, the left can never lose another election ever again. Welcome to the Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument. I'm your host, the editor of the daily blog, Martin Bradbury. Bomber to my comrades, Mr. Bradbury if you're nasty. My pronouns are us and we. Coming up on this evening's final show for 2025 Christmas special, the political panel all-stars tonight are the three wise men from the Daily Blog. Māori blogger at the Daily Blog, the mighty Tim Selwyn. Military blogger at the Daily Blog, the infamous Ben Morgan. And media blog at the Daily Blog, Professor Wayne Hope, one of New Zealand's greatest public academics. Tonight, we seek the political highlights and lowlights, plus predictions for 2026 from a stellar lineup of special guest stars. Māori Party President John Tamihere, National Party Minister Chris Penk, Speaker of the House Gerry Brownlee, political commentator Matthew Hooton, and leader of the Labour Party Chris Hipkins, all appearing tonight live on our end-of-year Christmas special. Plus, a special guest appearance from Santa Claus himself. Brothers and sisters, comrades, what a lineup! Are you not entertained? Shout out to Kiwi, Skirt and Chewy from BHN moderating tonight's YouTube page. Good evening to all the Bradbury Easters online watching right now. Your comments will appear on screen as we go. Shout out to our Wātea, Facebook, Rover, Spotify, Apple Podcast and Sky TV whānau. And our Twitter panel this evening is the mighty Tim Selwyn. He'll be tweeting live from the studio online at Twitter, hashtag the Bradbury Group. Don't forget, after tonight's show, we will all be heading down to Gigi's 165 Ponsonby Road for the Bradbury Group and Daily Blog end-of-year after party. So if you're in Auckland, rush there now, dump the kids. That's 165 Ponsonby Road right after the show. Well, it's been a hell of a year. Catastrophic climate change storms while the government wages a war on all environmental laws, vast abuses of power by our politicians as they strangle the common good for their donors' interests, 600,000 Kiwis needing help from food banks each and every month, an explosion of homelessness manufactured from very predictable social policies, a fake debate from a fake union between two of the biggest neoliberal economic vandals, and a deadly nightshade versus poisonous hemlock cage match that is as intellectually shallow as David Seymour calling out his own name at orgasm. That was pretty funny. Draconian welfare sanctions and culture war revenge fantasies masquerading as social policy, kneecapping paid parity during a cost of living crisis, the despicable character assassination of Benjamin Doyle, the ecstasy of the anti-treaty referendum bill protests, followed by the heartbreak of the Māori Party implosion, a fake ceasefire in Gaza and appalling anti-Semitic atrocity in Bondi, a forced surrender package for the Ukraine, another war crime genocide in Sudan, 0.0001% of the population owning 3 times the wealth of the poorest 50% of humanity, and the final season of Stranger Things on Netflix. What a year! Plus, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, the Foreign Minister of Aotearoa, New Zealand, called me on Sean Plunkett's platform and I quote, fat retard. The Foreign Minister of New Zealand said that, a fat retard. A Shakespearean wordsmith diplomat old Mātua Winston is, eh? A true weaver of stories in the loom of the mind. You race-baiting, anti-trans, anti-vaccine, cross-burning, lynch mob hanging, redneck jamboree, book-burning, climate-denying old fart you. Merry Christmas, Winston. Mwah! You remind me of the old Māori proverb. The silver hyena gleefully drinks the blood of the young while desecrating Gaia. It's a very old Māori proverb. Comrades, it's been a hell of a political year for our first guest tonight. He's a lover and a fighter, mostly a fighter. One of the few who have successfully sued Mike Hosking for defamation. When you come for his co-leaders, he politely responds with napalm. Former Labour Party Cabinet Minister, former Auckland Mayoralty candidate, current President of Te Pāti Māori, ladies and gentlemen, it's John Tamihere. Kia ora, comrade.
Kia ora.
One word to describe the year, please.
Oh, ripper.
John, what has been your political highlight of 2025?
The ability to organise activations up and down the country in our communities, and that builds organisation. Lowlights have been this regime and its constant attack on anything Māori and the essence of it. And also a couple of MPs that need to understand that to be moving from activism and protest into some form of governance role, you need some discipline. And so we're going through nothing that any other party hasn't been through. And we'll get through that. And I don't understand this thing about implosion and all this sort of stuff, because at our AGM, there was one dissenting voice and then everyone focuses on that. So we'll just see how we get through in the next wee while.
Praise be.
But looking forward to 2026 in terms of removing Mr. Luxon and his mates.
And what is your political predictions for 2026, John?
Oh, look, I think the way in which this government's managed the economy is abominable on any measure. So that's the first point. Second point is the way in which bridges have been burnt purposely between a whole range of communities.
Yep.
Whether it's Māori and Pākehā,
yep,
purposely, whether it's LGBT communities, whether it's gaslighting and cancelling other communities in the name of what goes on elsewhere in the world. That has to be rectified sooner or later. And so the main issue for us heading into 2026 is we don't have to say how bad the government is. That the numbers clearly demonstrate that, with the thousands of Kiwis that are heading offshore,
yep,
the tanking of the economy, the loss of jobs, all the rest of it. And so it doesn't matter whether you call green shoots in 26. The present regime has got a very difficult job to do because it's tanked everything. And
yeah,
you can't blame all of the left and all of the beneficiaries and all of those that are trying to make it responsible for what ultimately has occurred here, where all the tax breaks and everything gone top end of town, and they've invested it elsewhere than in Aotearoa. So
yeah,
basically, I think 2026, you'll see a one-term regime.
I have to ask one current affairs question while you're on. Will you be the Māori Party president through until the 2026 election?
Well, I'm only as good as my AGM and the people there, and the AGM before that. And the thing about politics is you have to learn how to count.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically, the numbers are the numbers. And if you want to dethrone somebody, you've got to actually put a resolution on the conference floor or the caucus floor and have the numbers to roll somebody. That's just not going to happen until somebody has those numbers, and they don't.
Your final word for 2025?
Oh, we've survived. And 2026 will start to thrive.
Thank you, comrade. Merry Christmas, John. Have an amazing holiday to you and your whānau. Peace on earth and goodwill to all. We'll see you next year. Cheers, John. Comrades, there are only two reasons to vote for the National Party. The first is Gerry Brownlee, because Jezza is a cultural tauanga who we will be speaking to shortly. And the second reason is tonight's second panellist. If he were a soccer team, the club chant would be Penky, 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 Penky. Please welcome to the show National Party Minister for Building and Construction, Land Information, Small Business and Manufacturing and Veterans, as well as being the Associate Minister for Defence and Immigration, the Honourable Chris Penk. Penky.
Good day. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah to you, Bomber, and all your listeners. Great to be with you tonight.
One word to describe the year, please, Penky.
Hope-filled, if you'll allow me, a double barrel.
It is double
I think
barrel.
there's a lot of hope as the year comes to an end that much better times lie ahead in 2026. So talking to you now in mid-December, I'm going to say hope-filled 2025 for better times ahead, politically as well as for New Zealand more generally.
What gives you that optimism?
Oh, well, I mean, you can look at the raw data and, you know,
The terrible economic information out today.
Yeah, well, wait till Thursday, Friday with those GDP numbers. But, you know, you can slice and dice the data any way you like, and you can cherry pick, you know, on my side of politics or the other to prove whatever hypothesis you want, I suppose. But more importantly, it's clear talking to ordinary New Zealanders in my electorate and around the country as well, that while times have been tough, and yes, the recovery is patchy, and it's different by sector, it's different by region. Nevertheless, there is a recovery. It has begun. And so that's what gives me optimism that with the fundamentals now in place, there's no reason we can't have a great year as a country in 2026, including, dare I say it, politically for the current government, notwithstanding Mr. Tamihere's claims and assertions and prediction at the end there.
Penky, what has been your political highlight of 2025?
I think probably for me, has been in the defence realm. I think, you know, I am really proud of being a government that's taking defence seriously. And yes, it's preparing for World War III that may or may never come. But of course, you buy an insurance policy not knowing whether the house will burn down. But more importantly, you know, we're providing value in the Indo-Pacific region with our Pacific neighbours, and it's about protecting against illegal and underregulated fisheries, it's protection of people and drug smuggling, it's disaster relief, humanitarian assistance, all these things we need to prepare for. As the government, we're taking this seriously. So that's a great source of personal satisfaction for me as my highlight for this year.
Were you concerned about 7 Chinese warships shadowing a New Zealand ship recently? I think we got reports on that. And of course, the 3 Chinese ships that they sent down through the Tasman Sea.
Yeah, I mean, the buzzword is contested. The region is contested. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, I feel honour bound to point out that the behaviour of the PLAN, People's Liberation Army Navy, or Chinese vessels, in the recent incident you've referred to actually was perfectly professional, entirely consistent with the rules of the high sea, just as our naval vessel transiting through that strait was also behaving in a way that just was consistent with the exercise of freedom of navigation. So there was nothing wrong with what took place on either front, but it's important nevertheless for us to have that presence and continue to demonstrate that we believe in the freedom of navigation.
What has been your political low light of 2025?
Well, perhaps, I mean, not really political so much, but I guess just the knowledge that a lot of Kiwis have done it really tough, being Minister of Building and Construction and trying to make the rules flow more readily for people to get consents and get work done and things built.
You've had a lot of praise for that. You've had a lot of praise across the aisle for the reforms that you've embarked upon.
Yeah, well, I've been grateful for the support that we've had across the aisle. I've been really pleased that with each new announcement, the response from the key opposition personnel, including some you've had on this show, I think, for example, Arana Williams as the Labour Party spokesperson, has been the right one, I think, for an opposition, which is supporting in principle, sceptical on the detail, determined to interrogate that through the Select Committee and other mechanisms of Parliament, and that's as they should be. But yeah, we've had good support for that. But nevertheless, in terms of a low light, obviously it's been a tough time for that sector, and we all understand why. Which is, that from COVID all the way through to 2025, it's been really hard. The artificial high, the consequent crash. But we're looking pretty good for a slow and steady uptick in 2026. Again, there's that hope-filled optimism coming through.
What is your political prediction for 2026?
Oh, well, obviously one doesn't want to sound complacent, but I think the fundamentals are there for a pretty solid re-election of the current government. And I know that's going against the grain in terms of what you've been talking up in terms of political polling through most of the year, with the obvious exception of last week's dissection of that one used poll. But it's not because we've had one good poll after a year of middling ones. It's the fact that the trend in terms of the optimism, the confidence of people to hire, to make purchases, make big decisions, is coming online. So for that reason, I think, the centre-right's looking pretty good, but we've got to work hard and obviously not take any support for granted either.
I have to ask one current affairs question while you're on. Will you, as Veteran Affairs Minister, protect veterans' access to welfare payments from Agent Orange?
Well, certainly, we've got a regime at the moment that says that veterans are entitled to certain support under the Veteran Support Act. And I noted your blog post, actually, which, I strongly agree with the thrust of. We've got to protect the system for all those entitled to it. It's clear to me on a legal as well as a moral basis that we do that. That said, with a court decision that we weren't expecting having come through, it's appropriate we take some time to consider what the government response, if any, should be in that space. So,
but veterans will be put first, right?
Veterans will always be put first, but if you think about a system that needs to be protected so that there are resources available for those who are most in need and can demonstrate clearly that actually, or even on a reasonable hypothesis that there was injury or harm done to them as a result of their deployment, then of course we need to focus the resources where they are most needed. So that's the ongoing challenge, but we haven't made any decisions in that space yet.
Your final word for 2025?
Just to stay strong, or kia kaha for New Zealand, and all the Kiwis who've done it tough. Enjoy your break, have a wonderful summer holiday, a relaxed time for those able to do so, and come back strong in the new year. And I'll certainly look forward to engaging you again and with you, Bomber and team, on the show.
Thank you, comrade. Merry Christmas, Penky. Have an amazing holiday to you and your whānau. Peace on earth and goodwill to all. We'll see you next year. Cheers, Penky.
Yes, please.
Our next panellist needs no introduction, yet I'm going to make one anyway. He is the mountain coming to Maoist Muhammad, the defender of the institution of democracy. He's a cultural tauanga who is fighting for our collective whakapapa all the way back to the Magna Carta. Ladies and gentlemen, Speaker of the House of Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Right Honourable Gerry Brownlee. Kia ora, comrade.
Yeah, I don't like being called a comrade, but I tell you what, just having listened to what you're saying there, I wonder if I could book you in for, maybe 20, 25 years' time to do a eulogy at my funeral.
Oh, amen. I'm there. I'm so there. One word to describe.
Fantastic.
One word to describe the year, please, comrade.
I think my friend, my friend, the Honourable Chris Penk, summed it up really well when he just said difficult for a lot of people.
Yep.
Difficult just about everywhere you looked. It was one of those years where there's just so much that's gone on. You sort of struggle to work out what was the good and the bad in it.
Yeah. What has been your political highlight of 2025?
Well, as you know, I'm the neutral speaker, so I don't get too much into the politics of these things. I like to keep it pretty much in the lane that I now find myself in. And I think, were you asking for a highlight or a low light?
Highlight.
Highlight, believe it or not, the highlight would have been the hekoi that came to Parliament. More than 100,000 people turned up. They were on the forecourt, they were on the lawn, they were out on the road because there were so many of them, right out down by the War Memorial. And they had made an arrangement that they were coming, that they would be here for a certain period of time, and they would leave.
Peaceful.
And there was a degree of nervousness about that, but it was well organised by people who knew what they were doing. They came, they had their protest, and they left. And you know something? There wasn't a speck of rubbish on the ground. It was unbelievable. They really did, I think, a great job. Such a large number of people. Look, even at a sports game, if you you wouldn't get that crowd at any sports venue in New Zealand these days. So it was, I think, a bit of a highlight in an odd sort of way.
What has been your political low light of 2025?
Well, probably right at the other end of things, and the same party more or less involved, would be the interruption of the vote with the haka earlier in the year. Now, I've got to be clear. There's no problem with the haka. That can be organised. It can be agreed. It's something that happens in this country in many, many places. The issue was that we were in the middle of a vote.
Yes.
And in a democracy, voting is extremely important. So you do not interrupt that vote. And that really, it wound me up quite a bit, actually. And I think we've got to protect that. You can't have protesters inside Parliament deciding that they're going to disrupt a process that they've signed up to in order to make some, a progress or otherwise in their particular view. And
because the point
the
isn't
bill
it,
they were protesting, the bill they were protesting was about to be lost. They were having a win.
It's important to remember this, isn't it, Gerry? Because, for some of us, we feel very passionate about that haka. We feel very, very passionate about the protest element there. But if we start doing those sorts of things, the right are able to then start picking it up and doing the same, and then you can't actually get anything done, right? That's your issue, isn't it?
No, my issue simply is that there is a process in Parliament. The people who are participating in that very big disruption, I can't stress how big a disruption that was to preventing a vote progressing, even though they're going to win it, which is the worst aspect of it. That is the unacceptable part. Don't become part of a process and then just try and destroy it from the inside. It's too big and it won't happen. And I sometimes think if there's a good point to be made, it can be cast into the pile of futility by silly behaviour like that.
What is your political prediction for 2026?
I've got any number of them. I think some of the current polling trend is going to continue. If you just look at the basic things. People might cast their vote based on education, health, the economy, welfare to some extent, but certainly housing and personal security. They're the things that, right from the get-go have always been important. And in all those areas, I think, you could see a lot of people saying good things about education at the moment. Health remains a challenge, but it's being met all the time. And then, of course, around the economy, you're seeing a little bit of a pickup at the moment. You described today's news as the half-yearly economic and fiscal update. I refuse to use this idiot term, haifu. That report from Treasury, I think it was a lot more optimistic than you might be painting it. Having said that, it did come from Treasury, and I have very little faith in any of their predictions.
Oh, kick them while they're down. I have to ask one current affairs question.
Well,
comrade.
Are they down? Seriously?
I want them to be down. As the Speaker of the House, do you believe using urgency to ram through controversial legislation like the 10 laws we're seeing being rushed through in December with little public scrutiny and little due process, do you believe misusing urgency in that manner by the government corrodes citizens' faith in the Institute of Parliament?
Look, I think there's a lot of hyperbole spoken about urgency. The reality is that the House this year, up until today, has only sat for 630 hours. That's the amount of time Parliament has sat, including about 200 hours of urgency. So if you took that out and said you can't run it, then you're looking at around about 365 hours for the year. Now, no one's going to say that's a good way to get things done. The problem is that we've got an MMP system. We've got 123 members. We've got 6 parties represented in Parliament. All want to have a say, but we're still working as if we were under our first past the post. And I think there needs to be some adaptation about that. And I think the hours that Parliament sits needs to be reconsidered as well, and particularly some parts of the way in which bills are progressed. But that's a personal view. It's something that I have put in front of the Standing Orders Committee and also the the Standing Orders Review that's going on at the moment as well.
Your final word for 2025, please, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I think all I can say is I can wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. I hope that they look back on the year with a little more fondness than perhaps some of the things they've experienced would let them do. My advice will be have a couple of weeks off if you've got it, if you can do that. don't listen to the radio, don't listen to watch TV, and don't read newspapers, and find out how good life can be if you actually just let it all go.
Thank you, comrade. Merry Christmas, Gerry. Have an amazing holiday to you and your whānau. Peace on earth and goodwill to all. We'll see you next year.
Why are you wearing a fez?
Because it's celebration time, because we're going out drinking right after this, and I got my drinking hat on. Cheers, Gerry.
Good. Everything explained.
Hooray. Our next panellist is New Zealand's most powerful right-wing Svengali in a country that has no idea what a Svengali is. Moral shepherd of the right, architect of the Death Star, legal representative of Slytherin House and union delegate for the Sith, the right-wing warrior poet behind the NZME paywall, Matthew Dirty Deeds Done Quite Expensively. Hooton, kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Good to be here.
One word to describe the year, please.
Disappointing.
Oh, disappointing? Why?
Well, I went to the Prime Minister's big speech back in January.
Yes.
And he announced there would be a year of economic growth.
You did.
And I thought, well, that's good. That's what we want. Just like 2019, you know, when it was announced by the then Prime Minister, it would be the year of delivery. I thought, well, that's good. Delivery is a good idea.
Yep.
Alas, it's been a recession this year. There's been no economic growth. Although, look, I think we are going to see a rebound.
Yes.
And I imagine it'll be about, say, 0.9%.
Okay.
Right, to make up. So
Sure.
September will nearly recover all of June.
And then it'll collapse.
And then what they'll say is they'll annualise it and they'll say, well, and then they'll round it up. And so I imagine by Thursday afternoon, Finance Minister Nicola Willis will be saying, look, there's 4% economic growth in this country. And I think most of the press gallery will just say, oh, really?
Okay.
Whereas, and she'll use that to say that the disastrous numbers out today are out of date because there's 4% economic growth. So
what has been your
by.
political highlight of 2025?
I think in the end that the Treaty Principles Bill test happened, and it was thrown out decisively. And
caused a lot of social carnage on the way, though.
It was a process that I adamantly opposed. I thought it was a mistake from a conservative perspective for the National Party to have agreed to it. But in the end, it just died a death and no one cares. And ACT had gone down in the polls. And then when ACT started, which I'm an ACT person sort of emotionally at least.
You are emotionally an ACT person.
When ACT went back to talking about the economy.
Yes.
Growth, debt, it started going up in the polls again. So hopefully there's an incentive for the ACT people to realise they're meant to be about
race-baiting bullshit doesn't work.
Well, there's others in Parliament that can do it sort of more graciously and gently, and ACT is meant to be about economic growth and becoming a rich country. That's what it's about.
Sure, but it's always love to just burn crosses. What is the political lowlight of 2025 for you?
I think the failure by both the two main parties, while they've done some good things towards the end by coming up with some new policy that was bold, the complete failure of the two main parties to take seriously the just debt spiral, wherein I heard Chloe Swarbrick today talking economics, but I had to agree. I mean, she talked about New Zealand going down the drain. We're going down our debt spiral, and, you know, we would, by the late 80s, early 90s, we all knew that the baby boomers were going to retire. There was going to be this big problem in the 2030s and the 2040s where we'd have to borrow all this money for the baby boomers' retirement. And so therefore it was crucial that we spent the 1990s, the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s saving money, running strong surpluses. And Michael Cullen did, Bill Birch, and Bill English, Grant Robertson, and now Nicola Willis has spent 15 years borrowing money we don't have. Nicola Willis has had to concede today there will be no surplus.
No, that's right. Until
2030. And then she's trying to tell us, but actually,
it's amazing.
The 2030s, which we all knew were going to be this terribly expensive, that's going to be the decade we'll pay the debt back. If she doesn't know that is completely untrue, then she is not taking advice seriously from her own treasury, which has told us the 2030s, 2040s are going to be disastrous. I mean, Michael Cullen wanted to save money.
Yes.
Instead it was borrowed and spent.
Political prediction for 2026, please, sir.
I think the coalition will be re-elected.
Oh, it's a terrible prediction.
I think that Labour will win the most votes.
Preach.
I think, I imagine it'll be a result somewhere around 31, 37. Labor getting 37, Labor National getting 31 in the end. And the small parties will sort of get 10 each or whatever, or around 9 each. And then I think, so the coalition will be re-elected. The National Party will be weaker than ever before. The New Zealand First Party will be stronger than ever before. And the ACT Party will be not as strong as New Zealand First, but still stronger than ever before. And as you know, Hooton's eternal law of MMP politics, each government is worse than the one before. I think the second term national government will succeed in upholding Hooton's law again.
I have to ask one current affairs question while you're on. If National loses the 2026 election, who will you be setting up as the next leader in the following coup?
I'll be taking soundings on that matter.
You will, right?
Through next year.
Okay, you'll through next year.
Yeah.
Your final word for 2026? 2025, sorry, this year.
About this year?
Yes.
Oh, it can't get worse, but it probably will.
Thank you, comrade. Merry Christmas, Matthew. Have an amazing holiday to you and your whānau. Peace on earth and goodwill to all. We hope to see you regularly on the Bradbury Group next year. Thank you so much. Cheers, Hoots. Our next panellist is a very special guest appearance from Santa Claus. That's right, the cheerleader for free market capitalism, Santa Claus. Santa, are you there?
I am, Bomber. I am here.
Hey, you're not Santa Claus. You're working class hero.
I've done a revolution on Santa. I am, in fact, one of the reindeer. You might not have heard of this particular reindeer, but I'm here to shit on your parade.
You're working class hero and Māori broadcaster at the mighty Wātia Network, Matthew Tukaki. You're the Māori Santa.
I don't know about a working class hero, Bomber.
You're the Māori Santa. You take presents from Pākehā kids and give them to the Māori kids. Money on the table that Don Brash complains to the Broadcasting Standards Authority over that joke. One word to describe the year, please, comrade.
Disappointment. You can't see it, but I'm wearing a T-shirt with a picture of Jesus in the middle saying, I'm disappointed in all of you. And I'm going to be using that T-shirt on Sunday when I go to the Destiny Church and say, I'm disappointed in all of you.
Preach.
Please follow me out the door and into a proper establishment where you can be healed.
What has been your political highlight of 2025?
Look, to be frank, the political highlight is I think we've just got to be a little bit more positive. Look, the economy is on the down. I think that is obvious. I actually fundamentally agree with Gerry Brownlee on this one, that one of the highlights was definitely the hikoi and how Māori and how the nation handled themselves.
Right.
You know, it says a lot about a country when you pick up your rubbish, when you come into a democracy and make your voice heard, protest, and quietly go home. That was the biggest protest, the hikoi that is, in recent history. And I think that tells all about what Māori really are about. We play the longer game. We're not here for a short time. We're a forever culture and a forever people and a forever country. And I think we can definitely sell that as a byline for everybody. Maybe not so much the ACT Party and old Parmajit, but certainly the rest of them, Bomber.
What has been your political lowlight of 2025?
Look, the political low is just how low in this country politics has become. I mean, I'm in a battle at the moment with one Cameron Slater, to be frank, I mean, I said to him, bring it on, Cameron. I'm not going to be taking a lesson in life from you, son.
Yeah.
And I sure as hell am not going to be taking a lesson in life from either the centrist, counterspin, or any one of these other heathen-type outfits.
Preach.
And so I'm disappointed, though, that we allow these bottom dwellers continue to ply their nefarious trade. And I also, it just saddens me that in a functioning democracy with a fantastic culture and great life, that we descend into a bottomless pit of madness because a very small minority think that they can tell the rest of us what to do.
What is your political prediction for 26?
It's the election. I'm not going to agree with Mr. Hooton. No surprises there.
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe that a Labor-led government, in whatever shape or form that takes, is really important for the country. Based on the economic results released today, showing very clearly that we're not going to be moving back into surplus until 2030 based on the current figures, tells me a lot. It tells me that it's not just a case of healing, it's a case of also investing in the future. I love the idea of Barbara Edmonds' future fund.
Yes.
To be frank, I was always a supporter of Big Norm Kirk
Yes.
and the superannuation policy of his
Yes.
back in 1972. I mean, back then, Bomber, as you know, I was still a glint in the milkman's eye, much like my little brother Michael.
Yes.
But I guess my point is that, if we're going to get anywhere, we've got to think more about investing in our future and not descending into short-termism. That all depends on what Uncle Winston does. Of
Yes.
course, I mean, he looks like he's in full campaign mode, but I mean, so was Lazarus. Lazarus had a triple bypass, otherwise known as John Howard. And look where things ended up.
I have to ask one current affairs question while you're on. As a Māori broadcaster, do you see the war on Māori media budgets as a self-interested attack on Fourth Estate journalism because Māori media have been so essential this year to holding the government to account?
Again, that's a bit of a short-termism question, I'm afraid, Bomber. I believe that Māori broadcasting is very much about the protection of the greatest taonga of all, which is Te Reo Māori. Look, Māori broadcasting was very much about being able to broadcast Te Reo Māori across the airways back in the day to the AM audience, then FM, and now online and social media. We are in a very unique position as a nation where we have a forever language that is also an official language, so too obviously sign language. And so I think what we should do is focus less on what we're trying to engineer it for today, and think very seriously about what more we can do with it based on its origin. And the origin was about not only saving Te Reo Māori, but enabling it to thrive.
Your final word for 2025?
Love. I mean, at some point I will try and do my best to fall in love with the right. I must admit, Gerry Brownlee's done an outstanding job tonight. Big ups to Mr. Brownlee. I've always had a deep amount of respect for him, irrespective of what the right-wing blogs might say. But look, I don't think we should be afraid at all to show aroha and manaakitanga at what is a very difficult period of time for a lot of whānau across the country, irrespective of their ethnicity. Times are tough. The country's tired. Let's have a bit of a holiday. I mean, look, I'm dressed up like an idiot, all just because you look like an idiot. So let's be idiots together.
This is my drinking hat. Thank you, comrade. Merry Christmas, Matthew. Have an amazing holiday to you and your whānau. Peace on earth and goodwill to you all. We'll see you next year. Cheers, comrade.
Meri kia meti.
Our final panelist tonight is the last great hope for the left. He's the highest ranking Jedi in New Zealand politics. He's Harry Potter with a lightsaber. He's a man who would not have borrowed $14 billion for tax cuts we can't afford, or $2.9 billion for landlords, or $300 million for big tobacco, or $200 million for oil and gas, voted in at school as most likely to be described as a generous lover. He's the leader of the Labour Party and sausage roll aficionado. Ladies and gentlemen, the Right Honourable Chris Hipkins. Kia ora, comrade.
Well, I don't know about the highest ranking Jedi, but I'm certainly the highest ranking ginger in the country anyway, Bomber.
One word to describe the year, please, Chris.
Challenging.
Yeah, hasn't it just? What has been your political highlight of 2025?
Launching the 3 policies that we launched. So I think that's 3 highlights, really. But the Future Fund, the free doctors' visits, and the targeted capital gains tax, all of those policy launches have gone well for us. The public have liked what they've seen.
Yes.
If I had to pick a favourite, in the long term, it's the Future Fund.
Yeah.
In the short term, it's giving people 3 free doctors' visits, because I just think it's going to make such a big difference.
Preach. What has been your political low light of 2025?
Another tough year and still no action on the cost of living by the government. So more kids living in poverty, more people living rough on the streets. And really all we're seeing from the government is just this constant blame game. All they want to do is find someone to blame for a problem. It's like if they stumble across a problem, they think, who can we blame for this? Not how can we solve this, or how can we help the people who are affected by this problem? It's as long as they can blame someone else for it, then they're quite happy to sweep it under the carpet. And, it's just no way to lead a country, really.
Yeah. What is your political prediction for 2026?
We're going to make history. It's going to be New Zealand's first ever one-term national government.
Awesome. I have to ask one current affairs question while you're on. Labor says it wants to properly fund public services and infrastructure, but the taxes you've proposed won't do that. If you have the privilege of leading the country next year, where will you find the revenue to properly fund our public services?
Well, there are lots of choices that governments make. So, Nicola Willis is complaining about a structural deficit, and she's trying to say that it's the previous government. Yeah, she's trying to say it's the previous government. Actually, her tax cuts, including the $3 billion she gave to landlords and the hundreds of millions for tobacco companies and the hundreds of millions for tech giants, that's what's created the structural deficit that she's going on about. So all governments have choices. So we're waiting to see what next year's budget brings and the economic fortunes of the country. But we will have quite a few different ideas to what this current government are putting before people at the moment.
What do you think of this fake debate between a fake union between Ruth Richardson and Nicola Willis? Because the Daily Blog certainly, and a lot of other left-wing bloggers have been pointing out that you can't criticise Labor's debt, which was created by a once-in-a-century pandemic, and then look at what the right have done. They've borrowed more for tax cuts we couldn't afford, a whole bunch of corporate welfare, while hollowing out public service budgets. Does it piss you off that Labor is always sort of put us up as this mismanager of the economy, when really the truth is that it's National who are far more vicious on that front?
So if you stack Labor and National end to end over the last 40 years,
right,
you say which party's growing the economy more? It's been Labor.
Bingo.
Which parties run surpluses and paid back debt? It's been Labor.
Right.
Which parties achieved lower unemployment? It's been Labor. Which party's been better for business? It's been Labor.
Exactly.
And actually, if you look at that over 40 odd years worth of the most recent data, it's pretty clear that Labor governments are actually better for the economy than national governments.
Exactly.
They talk a big game, but they don't actually deliver on it. They put more people out of work. They cut back on public services. They drive more people into poverty. They make sure that people who work hard can't actually see the benefits from their hard work.
Right.
And then they say that it's all about fiscal discipline. Their version of fiscal discipline is to make everything worse, to stack up the benefits to a very small minority of people who do very well under their philosophy of trickle-down economics, where nothing ever trickles down, it just stays at the top.
Right.
And in the meantime, everyone else goes backwards.
Yeah. Your final word for 2025, sir?
Hope. Next year, 2026, is all about hope. It can't get much worse than what they've been doing over the last 2 years. They took a country that was poised for recovery and they drove it into the ditch. And, Nicola Willis goes on about, oh, this was the mess we inherited. That's just not true. New Zealand was poised for recovery. The Treasury forecasts were showing the economy was going to grow. Yes, unemployment was going to go up, but then it was going to come down. We had a plan to bring the COVID spending, to wind that COVID spending up in a way that wasn't going to throw a whole lot of people on the economic scrap heap.
Yes.
We were working our way through that. We had an investment in infrastructure planned. Bearing in mind, they keep going on about needing to invest more in infrastructure. They're spending less money on infrastructure than we were as a government. They're building less. 20,000 fewer jobs in the construction sector than there were on election day 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's because of the decisions that they've taken.
Exactly.
Those 20,000 people, where have they gone? Well, a whole chunk of them have left the country.
Yep.
And some of them have ended up on a job seeker benefit. So we're paying them to sit at home when we could have been paying them to build the future of the country.
Preach. Thank you, comrade. Merry Christmas, Chippy. Have an amazing holiday to you and your whānau. Peace on earth and goodwill to all. We'll see you a lot more during the election year.
Right. And Merry Christmas, Bomber, and season's greetings to all those watching.
Thank you, comrade. Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, now to our end-of-year Christmas special 3 Wise Men political panel. Where's Ben? Where's Ben? From where? Get into the studio. Jesus. Our 3 Wise Men political panel from the Daily Blog. The Daily Blog, New Zealand's largest left-wing political blog. If you're not reading it yet, sort your shit out and get there now. Our first panellist is the Daily Blog's media blogger, Professor Wayne Hope. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show. One word to describe the year, please, sir.
Chaotic and getting worse.
Preach. Our next panellist is the Daily Blog's military blogger, Ben Morgan. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show. One word to describe the year, please, sir.
I think I'll go with Wayne and say it's chaotic as well in the international sphere, not just in the domestic sphere.
And we will get into that shortly. And last but certainly not least, the Daily Blog's Māori blogger Tim Selwyn. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show.
Kia ora.
Such a pleasure to have you here, sir. One word to describe the year.
I'm going with malaise.
Oh, malaise.
Malaise.
Chaotic and malaiseful. Comrades, let's get into tonight's end-of-year Christmas special. Tim, political highlight 2025.
I wish there was one.
Really?
But I think the most
Like-
dramatic thing has been the Māori Party implosion.
Yes.
I know
that your highlight? Is that your
JT does
highlight?
not.
Is that your highlight?
Here's the point. I think that there's going to be some independents after that who want to be independent, Taku Te Where's especially. All the signals say that he wants to be independent, and that's what he's going to do. Now, can he take Maria Meno with him, or maybe some others? So it's going to be quite a dramatic movement. I think we were both there when Hone split with the Māori Party originally.
We were.
So this could be a redux of that, and
Yep.
I think it could be quite dramatic, and it's going to be very interesting.
Wayne, political highlight of 2025.
Well, it has to be Zoran Madame's election
Yes.
for the mayor of New York.
Yes.
It was an extraordinary event. And can I just explain why it was so extraordinary? Because it was able to bring together two different kinds of politics. On the one hand, you have the politics of recognition, culture, religion, sexual orientation, gender, recognising others. Some people call that woke politics, but it's genuine, right stuff. And then there's another kind of politics which is around economic redistribution and fairness and affordability. And he was able to bring the two things together. So the cultural recognition stuff was how he built his coalition among the diverse ethnic communities of New York, among the diverse boroughs of New York, among diverse people in terms of it brought them together, but he brought them together on a common program, and that is that New York's bloody expensive, and it's difficult for people to live there. And it's not just for those that are poor or lower middle class. There's been a huge gentrification in New York, and what's happened, even the middle classes can't afford to live there. And this has been happening over a number of decades, and he really hit the button on that. So you look at his policies, which are really anti-gentrification, like free buses, having public supermarkets run by the city, making childcare more or less free.
Yep.
And these are hip pocket issues which are going to affect a whole range of people within New York, and he really developed momentum. And I think this is a really fundamental shift, and there's a lesson there for the Māori Party. There's a lesson there for all progressive politics around the world, that you don't have to separate out cultural identity stuff from the standard of living stuff. You can bring it together and integrate it and have real success.
Ben, political highlight 2025.
Political highlight of the year for me was the behaviour of a guy called Alexander Stubb. He's the president of Finland, and he's played an interesting game being the sort of Trump whisperer over the last year. He's the person who has developed a relationship with Trump, he's engaged with him, and he's carried Europe's discussion with Trump through the process of gently manoeuvring President Trump into a position where he's maybe not supporting Ukraine as much as he could, but he's definitely having that discussion.
I read Bolton's book In the Room Where It Happened, and he talks about, and it's a fascinating book, he talks that it was Trump's belief that the Ukraine had something to do with the 2016 Hillary Clinton email server, that it was hosted there. That was the whole reason he wasn't going to support the Ukraine. Is that insane?
I don't think I'd like to put myself in President Trump's head more than I need to. What I prefer to do is reflect on the fact that like Mandani in New York, what Alexander Stubb has done is he's demonstrated the fact that if you have principles, ethics, data and evidence, you can engage with anybody. And what he's done is he's taken that approach and he's worked hard to get that European perspective into US foreign policy, which has been really difficult through this year.
Is it what? Tim, political lowlight of 2025.
Lowlight would have been the implosion of the Māori Party.
That was your highlight!
No, it's been the Treaty Principles Bill, the whole thing about that, but the Regulatory Standards Bill. It's been the stripping out of all of the treaty clauses from almost everything that you can possibly think of, and now people are going to have to go through the back door around the long way to try and get it reinstated again, and it's degrading it. And what they're trying to do is set it in there. Hopefully Labor won't have the balls to reduce some of it if they can, if New Zealand First are in there, they won't be. And so the judiciary is going to start to rule on these things, and the things that we've assumed are there are not going to be there anymore. So that is the low light of this year.
Wayne, low light 2025.
Not so long ago, at the end of November, Kirsty Johnson from RNZ did some very good investigative reporting around the collusion between oil and gas interests and New Zealand government officials.
Yes.
And look, there wasn't just lobbying going on here, it was almost co-governance, closed-door workshops. Telling the oil and gas people that, hey, this is what the cabinet draft policy is. What do you think of that? This is just off the planet. And was designed to do a whole range of things like weaken oil and gas regulation companies, overturn offshore exploration ban, entrench that, weaken rules for cleaning up old fields. It was just appalling. And if you put it in wider context, what we've got here is what the Green Party and Greenpeace have called a war against nature.
Yes.
Now, the significance of this is that while people are debating whether the government is mitigating climate change sufficiently or whether they're strong enough on emissions, what they're actually doing is they're setting up new fossil natural gas-based value chains, poisonous value chains that generate combustion, put emissions into the atmosphere, accelerate global warming and create all these global tipping points that are already with us, things like heat waves, ice melting, the raising of the ocean levels, acidification of the oceans, the warming out of the tundra.
This is erotic talk for Shane Jones, though, isn't it? If we keep going like this.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is pretty serious stuff.
Yeah.
The government who gives lip service to the idea that climate change is bad, and we want to not make it quite so bad. But their actual policies and their actual collusion with oil and gas interests are actually accelerating climate change, not remedying it.
Ben, political low light 2025.
I think my political low light for this year in the international sphere would be the retreat from cosmopolitanism of the American foreign policy. What we've seen over the last year is a retreat from the idea of collective security, collectiveness generally within the international security and relations infrastructure, and that culminates in things like the current US security strategy that's just been released. We're seeing that withdrawal, we're seeing that pullback into a place where relationships between countries are defined by bilateralism. The international institutions are being weakened, and rather than having a collective model, it's almost becoming a 19th century style of politics that looks like whoever's got might is right.
Tim, prediction 2026.
Venezuela, flashpoint. Probably. Who knows? You wanted a fast answer, didn't you? No, it's what is he up to exactly? Like you say, the Monroe Doctrine and all those things from before, and because Trump is so transactional.
Oh, correct. I mean, there's a lot of theories about it. I mean, Venezuela has a large amount of oil, especially heavy grade oil. It's that the US doesn't get from fracking, and they have a lot of refineries. But that's a big leap. I mean, going on, this is the problem with a non-transparent transactional foreign policy, isn't it? We just don't know, do we?
Wayne, prediction 2026.
Can I start with US politics?
If you want to, go for it.
Okay, there's two things going on here which are going to accelerate further into next year. First of all, the MAGA coalition, or should I say the Trump coalition, which is basically MAGA and the tech bros, that'll start to fragment even further. The tech bros and the MAGA base are at odds over immigration. So Elon Musk thinks that, hey, we need those Silicon Valley experts all the way from India because otherwise America won't be great again, so there's going to be a split there. You're going to find that in the midterm elections, Republicans will take a bath. Whether they lose the Senate or not, I'm not sure, but they're going to get a real hit. You're going to get more progressive candidates like Manami doing very well, but that's going to create a real crisis for the Democratic Party because remember, Mandami won against the Democratic establishment, not just the Trump administration.
That's right.
And you're going to get a groundswell of popular sentiment in the US, which has already been there with the anti-Kings marches, even in Republican states.
Yes.
And that's going to create a social movement which is at odds with the Democratic Party, who try to do two things at once. They try to, on the surface, appeal to the activist base, but really they're just run by what I call the donor class.
Will MAGA suddenly realise that Trump's agenda is not America first, but it's Trump first? Because there's a difference, isn't there?
Well, tech bros first. And here's another issue that might blow those two sides apart, not just immigration, but AI, right? So I think the long-term impact, medium-term impact of AI is massive structural unemployment. And what's that going to do to the living standards of the MAGA base, right? These contradictions are really going to come to roost through 26.
Ben, prediction 2026.
My key prediction is I think that we're going to see some significant changes in the Ukraine war in 2026. I think, and this is obviously speculation, but I think we're in a position now where the casualties are biting on Russia.
Yes.
The loss of equipment is biting.
Yes.
There's a small window of opportunity at this stage to try and force a settlement through with President Trump in office while he has a reasonable relationship with Russia. And I think we could see some quite big changes next year.
Tim, final word, 2025.
I agree with the Ukrainian situation. They should have never got themselves into that in the first place. And they did. And now look where they are, and they're going to have to suck it up. And they're going to have to agree that those provinces are now Russian.
Wayne, final word, 2025.
Christmas joke. Why hasn't Prince Andrew written any Christmas books?
Why?
He doesn't have any titles.
Wow. Ben, final word, 2025.
Peace. That's what I think about at Christmas, and long may we struggle to get it, and when it comes, let's hope it lasts a long time.
Thank you, comrades. And now to my final word for the year and for the season. Brothers and sisters, there is much for the left to chew over this summer as we enter election year. Labour have walked away from Mandani's state-backed radicalism and are channeling Keir Starmer's incrementalism to catch the soft blue middle vote. The Greens must become politically relevant by focusing on motivating those who didn't vote and ensure their under 40 base does get out to vote. And Te Pāti Māori need to sort their shit out because the ambitions of a few have swamped all our walkers. This hard right government, with their anti-treaty, anti-Māori, anti-disabled, anti-renter, anti-worker and anti-environment agenda that strangles the common good for their donors' interests, are laughing all the way to the ballot box. The left need to get their shit together, because if these arseholes win a second term, there won't be any point winning the Treasury benches back, because the mutilated remains of the state will be so damaged it can't actually function for the people. The right manipulate the petty bigotries of New Zealand better than the left can inspire for the common good. And with that cheery note, Merry Christmas, everyone. Don't forget, right now, we're all heading down to Gigi's 165 Ponsonby Road for the Bradbury Group and Daily Blog end of year after party. So if you're in Auckland, rush there now. That's 165 Ponsonby Road. We will see you all next year for the election. Thank you so much for tuning in this year. It's been an absolute privilege to bring this to you. In solidarity, the revolution continues. Ka pai Aotearoa.
The Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument. The Bradbury Group is an independent podcast through the Rover Network, sponsored by Wātea News. After the show, the Bradbury Group enjoys conviviality at 165 Ponsonby Road. Why not pop down, meet the show staff and plot the revolution? That's 165 Ponsonby Road, Tuesday night drinking at its best. Everything on the show is an opinion and shouldn't be taken seriously enough to attempt defamation action against us. We were joking. We're never serious about anything, and officially, a small wetter in Avondale is legally the owner. Good luck finding him. Don't forget to follow, like and comment.
Something to hope for. The revolution revolution is now. The Bradbury Group transmission will begin. Comrade Commissar, launch the podcast.